Nari Kim stared at the data on her screen and felt her blood turn cold. The numbers were wrong. It's very wrong. She sat in her small lab on the mining ship's stellar harvest, looking at test results that made no sense. For 3 months, she had been studying plant and animal samples from different planets. Her job was simple: find useful things that could help humans. Medicine, food, materials. Normal science work, but these results showed something else, something illegal. The samples from Keth 7 were not being used for medicine. They were being turned into weapons. Bioweapons. The kind that could kill entire cities. Nari's hands shook as she checked the data again. She had to be wrong. Her team leader, Taemin Park, was a respected scientist. He would never do something like this. She heard footsteps in the hallway. Taemin walked into her lab with his usual smile. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. Everyone on the ship liked him. "Working late again, Nari?" he asked. "You should get some rest." Taemin, Nari said, turning her screen toward him. "I need to ask you about these results." The smile faded when he saw the data. For a moment, his kind face became hard and cold. Then the smile returned. "You found our little secret," he said softly. "This is illegal," Nari whispered. "Our bioweapons? We're supposed to be scientists, not weapons dealers." Taemin sighed and sat down. "Nari, you're young. You don't understand how the galaxy works. The Galactic Council talks about peace, but there are always wars. Well, small ones. Big ones. Someone has to supply the weapons. But we're killing people. We're making money," Taemin said.
Oh.
His voice was still gentle, but his eyes were cold. "Do you know how much a single bioweapon sample sells for? Enough to buy a small planet?" Nari stood up, her chair falling backward. "I won't be part of this. I'm going to report this to the council." "No," Taemin said quietly. "You're not." Something in his voice made Nari step back. This was not the man she had worked with for months. This was someone else. Someone dangerous. "You can't stop me," she said. "I have copies of all the data." Taemin smiled again, but it was not a kind smile. "Actually, I can stop you, and I will." Nari ran. She pushed past Taemin and ran down the hallway toward the communication room. She had to send a message to the council before he could stop her. She reached the room and started typing quickly. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she uploaded the weapon data. Just as she hit the send button, strong hands grabbed her arms. 2 other team members, Jinwoo and Hyeon-soo, held her, while Taemin walked in slowly. "Did it send?" Jinwoo asked. Tae-min checked the computer. "No, I cut the communications 5 minutes ago. I'm not stupid, Nari." "You can't do this," Nari said, struggling against the hands holding her. "People will ask questions when I disappear." "You're not going to disappear," Taemin said. "You're going to have an accident. A very sad accident on a very dangerous planet." Nari's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" Ketsevan, Taemin said. "Such a terrible place. So many deadly creatures. So many poisonous plants. People die there all the time, even experienced scientists." "You're insane," Nari whispered. "I'm practical," Taemin replied. "We have a good business here. We'll make lots of money. We're not going to let one person ruin that." They dragged Nari to the shuttle bay. She kicked and screamed, but the ship was small and only had their team aboard. No one would help her. They threw her into a small escape pod with basic survival gear. It's a water recycler, some food packets, a small medical kit, and a broken communication device. "The unit should work for a few days," Taemin said as they sealed the pod. "You can call for help if you want." But Ketsevan is very far from any trade routes. By the time anyone arrives, well, ... double quotes, he shrugged. "The planet will have taken care of our problem." "Tae-min, please," Nari begged. "We worked together. We were friends. Business is business," he said, and closed the pod door. The pod launched with a violent shake. Nari was thrown against the wall as the small ship fell toward the planet below. Through the tiny window, she could see Ketsevan growing larger. It looked beautiful from space, green and blue, with white clouds swirling around it. She knew it was not beautiful at all. It was a death trap. KETH-7 was famous throughout the galaxy as a kill planet. The plants were poisonous. The animals were predators. The air itself was dangerous without proper filters. The average survival time for a human was 72 hours. The pod crashed through the jungle canopy and hit the ground hard. Nari's head struck the wall and everything went black. When she woke up, it was getting dark. Her head hurt and her shoulder was bleeding. She checked her supplies. The water recycler was working. She had food for maybe a week. The medical kit was basic but complete. The communication device was completely broken now. She was alone, outside. The pod. She could hear sounds. Strange calls and roars echoing through the jungle. Night was coming. And she knew that was when the really dangerous creatures came out to hunt. She sealed the pod door and tried to sleep, but every sound made her jump. Every shadow looked like a monster. She was going to die on this planet. Taman had been right about that. But she was not going to die quietly. She was going to survive as long as possible. Maybe someone would find her. Maybe she could fix the cum unit. Maybe she could find a way to make Taman pay for what he had done. As complete darkness fell over KETH-7, Nari heard a new sound. A deep, haunting howl that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was answered by another howl, then another. The apex predators were calling to each other. The hunt was beginning. Nari closed her eyes and tried not to think about what would happen when they found her small pod in the jungle. She tried not to think about teeth and claws and death, but the howling continued all night long. Getting closer and closer, her 72 hours had begun. Nari woke up on her third day on KETH-7. She was still alive, which surprised her. The planet had tried to kill her many times already. On the first day, she had almost eaten a pretty blue fruit that would have stopped her heart in minutes. On the second day, she had nearly stepped on a snake that shot poison from its eyes. But she was learning. Her science training was keeping her alive. She had found a cave system near a small stream. The water was clean after she boiled it. Also found some gray mushrooms that were safe to eat. They tasted terrible, but they gave her energy. The cave was deeper than she first thought. It went back into the hill for many meters. She had made her camp near the entrance where she could see outside, but stay hidden from the creatures that hunted in the jungle. Every night, she heard the howling. The apex predators were out there, calling to each other as they hunted. During the day, she heard other sounds, screeches, roars, and crashes as different creatures fought each other. Nari was checking her water supply when she heard something new. A high-pitched whining sound, like an animal in pain. It was coming from deeper in the jungle. She should have ignored it. Smart people did not go towards strange sounds on a kill planet. But Nari was a scientist. She was curious. And the sound was so sad and desperate that she felt sorry for whatever was making it. She took her small medical kit, followed the sound. The jungle was thick with vines and thorns. Everything seemed designed to cut, poison, or trap her. She moved slowly, checking each step. The whining got louder. Then she heard other sounds. Harsh screeches and the flapping of wings. Something was being attacked. Nari pushed through a wall of thick leaves and found herself in a small clearing. What she saw made her gasp. A young creature lay on the ground, bleeding from many wounds. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was the size of a large dog, but it looked like a wolf mixed with a lizard. Its fur was dark blue with silver spots. Along its back were small crystal spines that glowed faintly in the jungle light. Standing over it were 3 flying creatures. They looked like bats, but they were huge. Each one was as big as Nari herself. Their wings were black leather, and their beaks were full of sharp teeth. They were called razor wings. They were one of the most dangerous creatures on KETH-7. The young creature on the ground was trying to fight, but it was too hurt. The razor wings were taking turns diving down and cutting it with their claws. They were playing with it before they killed it. Nadash-R. I knew she should run. The razor wings would kill her in seconds. But looking at the young creature, she felt angry. It was just a baby and they were torturing it. She picked up a rock and threw it as hard as she could. It hit one of the razor wings in the head. The creature screeched and spun around to look at her. Hey, Nari shouted. "Fight someone your own size?" The three razor wings forgot about the wounded creature and flew toward her. Nari ran back into the thick jungle. The flying creatures were fast, but they were too big to follow her through the tight spaces between the trees. She ran for 10 minutes before she lost them. When she was sure they were gone, she went back to the clearing. The young creature was still there, still alive, but barely up close. She could see it better. It was definitely young, maybe just a few months old. Its crystal spines were small and dull. An adult would have spines that were sharp and bright. Its eyes were large and golden, and they watched her with intelligence. This was a baby Vorthok, the apex predator of Keth 7. When it grew up, it would be 3 meters tall and weigh as much as a small car. Its crystal spines would be deadly weapons, and its bite could crush steel. But right now, it was just a hurt baby. Nari knelt down slowly. The creature growled softly, but it was too weak to move. She could see deep cuts on its legs and sides. Without help, it would die soon. "Easy," she whispered. "I'm not going to hurt you." She opened her medical kit and took out antiseptic and bandages. The creature's eyes followed her every move. When she reached toward its wounds, it snapped at her hand. Its teeth were already sharp, even as a baby. "I know you're scared," Nari said softly, "but I want to help you. Those flying things are gone. You're safe now." She moved very slowly. Each time the creature growled, she stopped and waited. After a few minutes, it seemed to understand that she was not a threat. The wounds were deep but not fatal. She cleaned them carefully and wrapped them with bandages. The creature whined softly, but did not try to bite her again. When she was done, she sat back. The young Vorthok looked at her with its golden eyes. There was something in that look. Intelligence, understanding, maybe even gratitude. "You're welcome," Nari said. The creature tried to stand but fell back down. It was too weak from blood loss. Nari made a decision that she knew was probably stupid. She could not leave the baby here to die, but she also could not carry it. It was too heavy. "Can you walk if I help you?" she asked. The creature seemed to understand. It struggled to its feet and leaned against her. Together, they made their way slowly back to her cave. It took an hour to travel what should have been a 10-minute walk. The young Vorthok was heavy and kept stumbling, but it never tried to hurt her. It seemed to know she was helping. When they reached her cave, the creature collapsed just inside the entrance. Nari gave it water and some of her food. It ate hungrily. As the sun set, Nari realized what she had done. She had saved the life of a creature that would grow up to be one of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. In a few months, it would be big enough to kill her without thinking. But looking at the young creature as it slept, she did not feel afraid. She felt protective. It was just a baby that had been attacked by bullies. She had done the right thing. She decided to call it Barum, which meant wind in her language. It seemed like a good name for something that would grow up to be fast and powerful. Outside the cave, the nightly howling began. Other Vortheks were calling to each other. Barum's ears twitched, but it did not wake up. Nari wondered if those calls were from its parents, looking for their lost child. She hoped they would not find her cave. Adult Vorthaks were much more dangerous than Razorwings. But for now, she had a strange new companion. A baby apex predator that trusted her enough to sleep in her cave. It was the beginning of the most unlikely friendship in the galaxy. 3 weeks had passed since Nari saved Baram. The young Vorthok had grown much bigger. It was now the size of a large human, and its crystal spines were getting brighter and sharper. Nari watched Barum drink from the stream near their cave. She still could not believe what had happened. She had expected the creature to leave as soon as it got better. Instead, it had stayed with her. At first, she thought it was just too weak to go back to its pack. But as days passed, she realized something strange. Baram did not want to leave. It had chosen to stay with her. The young Vorthok had become her protector and helper. Every morning, it would go into the jungle and return with food. Not just any food, safe food that Nari could eat. Somehow, Bahram could tell which plants were poisonous and which were safe. How do you know that? Nari asked as Bahram dropped a pile of purple berries at her feet. She had tested them with her basic chemistry kit. They were completely safe and full of vitamins. Bahram tilted its head and made a soft, rumbling sound. It was the sound it made when it was pleased. Nari had learned to understand many of Bahram's sounds. It had a different call for danger, another for hunger, and another for happiness. She was starting to think that Vortex were much smarter than anyone knew. The science reports said they were just animals, dangerous, but not intelligent. But Bahram showed signs of real thinking. It had learned to recognize her equipment. When she took out her medical kit, Bahram would lie down and let her check its wounds. When she picked up her water purification tablets, it would point toward the stream. Most amazing of all, Bahram had started to teach her things. It would lead her to safe places and show her dangerous ones. When she was about to eat something harmful, it would growl and push her hand away. One morning, Bahram brought her something different. Instead of food, it carried a small animal in its mouth. The animal was dead, but it was not torn apart. Bahram had killed it very carefully. "Thank you," Nari said, taking the small creature. He looked like a rabbit, but with 6 legs and blue fur. She had seen them before, but had never been able to catch one. Bahram sat down and watched her prepare the meat. Its golden eyes were bright with intelligence. Nari was sure it was thinking about something. That night, as she cooked the meat over her small fire, she talked to Bahram. She had started doing this every evening. The creature always listened carefully. "You know, Bahram," she said, "I think you're not just an animal. I think you're a person. Different kind of person, but still a person." Bahram made its happy rumbling sound and moved closer to the fire. Its crystal spines glowed softly in the firelight. "I wonder what your family thinks," Nari continued. "They must be looking for you. Don't you want to go back to them?" Bahram looked at her for a long moment. Then it did something that made Nari's heart skip. It reached out with one large paw and gently touched her hand. The message was clear. This was its family now. Nari felt tears in her eyes. She had been alone for so long. First betrayed by her team, then abandoned on this deadly planet. But now she had a friend. Strange, dangerous friend, but a real friend. Their peaceful life was interrupted 2 days later. Nari was gathering mushrooms near the stream when she heard Bahram make a sound she had never heard before. It was a deep warning growl that seemed to shake the ground. She dropped the mushrooms and ran back to their cave. Bahram was standing at the entrance, its crystal spines glowing bright red. Its fur was standing up, making it look even bigger. "What is it?" Nari whispered. Then she heard them. Footsteps. Many footsteps, coming through the jungle. And voices. Human voices. "The signal came from this direction," someone said. "She has to be around here somewhere." Nari's blood went cold. She recognized the voice. It was Jinwoo, one of Taemin's team members. "I still don't understand why we're looking for her," another voice said. "She's been here for weeks. She's probably dead. We have to be sure," Jinwoo replied. "If she's alive, she could still cause problems. And if she's dead, we need to find her body and make sure it looks like an accident." They were hunting her. They had come to finish what they started. Nari grabbed her few possessions and moved deeper into the cave. Bahram followed. Moving silently despite its size, she had discovered that the cave system was much bigger than she first thought. There were tunnels that led to other parts of the mountain. They hid in a deep chamber while the voices got closer. Nari could hear the men searching around the cave entrance. "Someone's been living here," Jinwoo said. "Look, there's a fire pit. And food storage?" "So she is alive," the other voice said. "Where is she now?" "Probably out looking for food. We'll wait." Nari's heart pounded. They were going to wait in her cave. She could not go back. But she also could not stay in the deep tunnels forever. She would run out of water. Bahram seemed to understand the problem. It moved close to Nari and made a very soft sound. Ow. Then it did something that surprised her. It started to move toward the cave entrance. "No," Nari whispered. "It's too dangerous." But Bahram looked back at her with its golden eyes. There was something in that look. determination, love, protection. It was going to fight for her. Bahram, no, she said. There are too many of them. They have weapons. But the young Vorthok was already moving. It crept through the tunnels like a ghost. Nari followed, trying to stop it. But Bahram was faster. They reached a spot where they could see the cave entrance. 3 men were sitting around her fire pit. They all carried plasma rifles, weapons that could kill a Vorthok. But Bahram did not seem afraid. It studied the men for a long moment. Then it looked back at Nadashari. She saw something in its eyes that made her understand. This was not just a ranimal protecting its friend. This was a intelligent being making a choice. It was choosing to risk its life for someone it loved. Be careful, she whispered. Bahram touched her hand gently with its nose. Then it moved toward the cave entrance. The hunt was about to begin. But this time Nari was not alone. She had a friend who was willing to fight for her. A friend who was growing stronger every day. A friend who was becoming the apex predator it was born to be. Bahram moved through the shadows like a ghost. Nari watched from the deep cave as her friend crept toward the 3 men sitting around her fire. She wanted to call out and stop him, but she knew it would only put them both in danger. The young Vorthok had grown smart during their weeks together. It did not charge at the men like a wild animal. Instead, it studied them, watched how they moved, where they placed their weapons, how they talked to each other. Jin-Wu was cleaning his plasma rifle. The other 2 men, Hyan-Su and Dongmin, were eating Nari's food and laughing about something. They thought they were safe. They thought they were the hunters. They were wrong. Bahram made its first move, picked up a rock with its mouth and threw it into the jungle, far from the cave. The rock hit a tree and made a loud crash. What was that? Hyan-Su asked, jumping up. Probably just an animal, Jinwu said, but he picked up his rifle anyway. Should we check it out? Dongmin asked. No, Jinwu replied. We stay here. If Nari is alive, she'll come back eventually. We just wait. But Bahram was not done. It moved to another position and made a different sound. This time, it imitated the call of a razorwing. The harsh screech echoed through the jungle. The 3 men looked nervous now. They knew what razorwings could do. Maybe we should move inside. The cave, Hyan-Su suggested. No, Jinwu said firmly. We stay here, but keep your weapons ready. Nari watched in amazement as Bahram continued to play with the men's minds. It made sounds from different directions. It threw more rocks. It even used its crystal spines to create light flashes in the jungle, making the men think they saw movement. The 3 men were getting more and more scared. They stood back to back, pointing their rifles at every shadow. This place is creepy, Dongmin whispered. Maybe we should just leave. Nari is probably dead anyway. We're not leaving until we find her, Jinwu said. Taemin was very clear. About that, Nari felt anger rise in her chest. Even now, Taemin was trying to control her life. Even now, he wanted her dead. Bahram must have sensed her anger. It looked back toward her hiding place, and its golden eyes seemed to glow in the darkness. Then it made a decision. The young Vorthok stepped out of the shadows. All 3 men screamed. Nari did not blame them. Bahram had grown much bigger. In the past weeks, it was now almost as tall as a human, and its crystal spines were bright and sharp. Its fur was dark blue with silver spots, and its teeth were white and deadly. Vorthok, Jinwu shouted. Shoot it. The 3 men opened fire. Plasma bolts flew through the air, lighting up the jungle. But Bahram was no longer where they were. Shooting it had already moved. Nari had been watching Bahram hunt for weeks. She had seen it catch fast animals and avoid dangerous plants. She knew it was smart and quick. But she had never seen it fight. Now she understood why Vortheks were the apex predators of Keth 7. Bahram did not attack directly. Instead, it used the jungle itself as a weapon, knocked down trees to block the men's escape routes, led them into thick vines that tangled their feet. It made them waste their ammunition shooting at shadows. Where is it? Hyan-Su screamed, spinning around with his rifle. I don't know, Jinwu replied. But it's too fast. Barum appeared behind Dongmin and knocked him down with one swipe of its paw. The man's rifle went flying. He screamed and tried to crawl away, but Barum pinned him down. "Help me," Dongmin cried. Ginwu and Hyansu fired at Barum, but the creature was too close to their friend. They could not shoot without hitting Dongmin. Barum looked up at the two men and made a sound that Nari had never heard before. It was deep and threatening and seemed to come from the earth itself. It was the sound of a true predator. The two men backed away, their faces white with fear. Then Nari heard something that made her heart stop. More sounds from the jungle, howls and calls that echoed through the trees. Adult Vortex, a whole pack of them. They were coming. Baram's distress calls during the fight had summoned its family. "We need to go," Hyansu said, his voice shaking. Now, but Ginwu was not ready to give up. He aimed his rifle at Barum and fired. The plasma bolt hit the young Vorthok in the side, and it fell with a cry of pain. "No," Nari screamed, running out of her hiding place. The three men turned to look at her. Jinwu smiled coldly. "There you are," he said. "We've been looking for you." Nari ran to Barum's side. The young Vorthok was bleeding, but it was still alive. It looked at her with its golden eyes and made a soft whimpering sound. "You're going to be okay?" she whispered, pressing her hands against the wound. "How touching," Jinwu said, pointing his rifle at both of them. "The last human on Keth 7 and her pet monster." "It's not a monster," Nari said angrily. "It's my friend." "Friend," Jinwu laughed. "It's an animal. A dangerous animal that should be dead." "You're the dangerous ones," Nari replied. "We're the ones selling weapons to kill innocent people." "We're businessmen," Ginwu said. "And you're a problem that needs to be solved." He raised his rifle to shoot, but before he could fire, the jungle exploded with sound. The adult Vorthax had arrived. 5 massive creatures stepped out of the trees. They were 3 times bigger than Baram, with crystal spines that glowed like stars. Their eyes were the same golden color as Baram's, but they were filled with rage. 3 men forgot about Nari and Baram. They raised their weapons and fired at the adult Vortex, but the creatures were too fast and too smart. They spread out and attacked from different directions. In seconds, the fight was over. Dongmin and Hyansu were down. Only Jinwu was left standing, and he was backing toward the cave with his rifle shaking in his hands. "Stay back," he shouted. "I'll kill all of you." But the adult Vortex were not afraid of his weapon. They moved closer, their spines glowing brighter and brighter. Then something amazing happened. The largest Vorthok, probably Baram's parent, looked at Nari. She was still kneeling beside the wounded young Vorthok, still pressing her hands against its wound. The adult creature tilted its head and made a soft sound. It was the same sound Baram made when it was pleased. The other Vorthok stopped moving. They looked at Nari, then at Baram, then at each other. They were having a conversation without words. Nari realized they were deciding whether to kill her or not. She held her breath and waited. The largest Vorthok stepped forward. It sniffed at Nari, then at Baram. It could smell that she had been caring for the young one. It could smell that they were friends. It made a decision. It touched Nari's shoulder gently with its huge paw. Then it moved past her toward Jin-Wu. Double quotes. No. Jin-Wu screamed, firing his rifle wildly. But the plasma bolts did not stop the angry parent. In one swift move, it was over. The jungle was quiet again. The adult Vorthax gathered around Baram, checking on the wounded young one. They made soft sounds of concern and affection. Nari stayed very still. She did not know what would happen next. The adult Vortex had spared her life, but that did not mean they trusted her. Then Baram did something that surprised everyone. It struggled to its feet and moved to stand beside Nari. It leaned against her, showing the adult pack that she was part of its family. The largest Vorthok looked at this strange sight. A human and a young Vorthok, standing together like pack. Mates. Slowly, it nodded its great head. It understood Nari was not prey. She was family. The rescue mission had failed. But something much more important had been born. a bridge between two species, a friendship that would change everything. 3 days after the fight, Nari sat beside the stream, watching Barum play with two adult Vorthax. The young creature was healing well from its plasma wound. Thanks to both her medical care and some strange healing paste the adult pack had. Brought, the largest Vorthok, whom Nari had started calling Elder, watched from nearby. It was clearly Baram's parent. Its crystal spines were the brightest she had ever seen. Its golden eyes held deep intelligence. Nari had learned much about Vorthoks in the past few days. They were not just hunters. They were a family. They took care of each other. Shared food. They mourned their dead. Even seemed to have rules about right and wrong. When she had tried to bury the 3 dead humans, Elder had stopped her, not because it was angry, but because it understood what burial meant. It had helped her dig the graves and had stood quietly while she said words over them. Even though the men had tried to kill her, Nari felt sad about their deaths. They had been wrong, but they were still human. Elder seemed to understand her sadness. It had brought her small gifts each day. Pretty stones, flowers that were safe to smell, even a crystal from its own spine that had fallen off naturally. On the 4th day, Nari heard a new sound in the sky. The deep rumble of ship engines. She looked up and saw 3 large vessels coming. Through the clouds, they were painted white, with blue markings. Galactic Council ships. Finally, she whispered. Her distress signal from weeks ago had finally reached someone. The authorities were here. The ships landed in a clearing near the stream. Soldiers came out first, wearing full armor and carrying weapons. They were followed by officials in clean uniforms. Nari stood up and walked toward them, but she was not alone. Elder and 4 other adult Vorthax walked with her. Baram stayed close to her side. The soldiers raised their weapons when they saw the Vorthax. "Don't shoot," Nari called out. "They're with me." A woman in a captain's uniform stepped forward. She had gray hair and kind eyes, but she looked very confused. "Dr. Nari Kim?" the captain asked. "Yes," Nari replied. "I'm Captain Lee Sujin of the Galactic Council Peacekeepers. We received your distress signal. Are you injured? Are you being held captive by these creatures?" Nari almost laughed. "Captive? No, Captain. They saved my life." Captain Lee looked at the massive Vorthok surrounding Nari. The creatures stood calmly, their crystal spines glowing softly. They did not look dangerous. They looked protective. "I don't understand," the captain said. "These are Vorthax. They're supposed to be mindless killers." "They're not mindless," Nari said firmly. "They're intelligent. They have families, emotions, even morals. Everything we thought we knew about them was wrong." Baram stepped forward and made a soft rumbling sound. It was the sound it made when meeting new people. Elder placed a large paw on the young one's back, showing it was safe. "Incredible," whispered a scientist who had come with the council team. "Are you saying you've established communication with them?" "More than that," Nari said. "I'm part of their pack now. They've adopted me as family." Captain Lee shook her head in amazement. "Dr. Kim, do you realize what this means? First contact with an intelligent species is one of the most important events in galactic history." "I know," Nerisse said, "but that's not why I called for help. I have evidence of crimes being committed by my former research team," she told them. Everything about the bioweapons, about Taemin's illegal business, about how they had tried to kill her to keep her quiet. "We found the bodies of 3 men," Captain Lee said. "Ginwoo Park, Hyansu Choi, and Dong Min-yoon. How did they die?" Nari looked at Elder. The massive Vorthok met her eyes calmly. "They came here to murder me," Nari said. "The Vorthax defended me. It was self-defense. And the other team members, Taemin Park and the rest, they should still be on their ship, the Stellar Harvest. You need to arrest them before they destroy the evidence." Captain Lee spoke into her communication device. Within minutes, she had confirmation that the peacekeepers had found and boarded the Stellar Harvest. Taemin and his remaining team were under arrest. "Dr. Kim," Captain Lee said, "I need to ask you something important. Are you willing to come with us? The council will want to hear your story, and they'll want to learn about your ... friends here." Nari looked around at the Vortex. They had become her family over the past weeks. The thought of leaving them made her heart hurt, but she also knew this was bigger than just her. If humans. and Vortex could be friends, it could change everything. No more kill planets, no more fear between species, maybe even no more wars. "I'll come," she said, "only if the Vortex are treated with respect. They're not animals to be studied." "They're people, of course," Captain Lee agreed. "Establish proper first contact protocols." Elder seemed to understand what was happening. It made a series of sounds to the other Vorthoks. They talked for several minutes in their own language. Finally, Elder approached Nari. It gently touched her face with its paw and made a soft sound. Nari felt tears in her eyes. It was saying goodbye. "I'll come back," she promised. "I'll make sure humans understand what you really are." Barum winced softly. It did not want her. "To leave, you need to stay with your real family," Nari told the young Vorthok. "But I'll visit, I promise." Captain Lee stepped forward. "Actually, Dr. Kim, I have a proposal. The council is going to need an expert on Vorthok behavior and communication, someone who understands them. Would you be interested in becoming our official liaison?" Nari's heart jumped. "You mean I could come back? I could work here?" "More than that. I could establish a permanent research station, a place where humans and Vortex could learn from each other, a bridge between our species." Nari looked at Elder. The massive creature tilted its head and made its happy, rumbling sound. It understood. It approved. "Yes," Nari said. "Yes, I'll do it." 6 months later, Nari stood on the observation deck of the new research station built near her old cave. Through the window, she could see Baram teaching a group of human children how to identify safe plants. The young Vorthok had become the station's unofficial ambassador. Elder and the other adults worked with human scientists, sharing knowledge about the planet's ecosystems. They had already discovered 3 new medicines and 2 new food sources. The research station was a success. More importantly, it was proof that different species could work together. Nari smiled as she watched. Aram gently helped a small human girl climb onto its back for a ride. The same creature that was supposed to be a mindless killer was now a beloved friend to dozens of humans. She thought about Taman, now serving a long prison sentence for his crimes. He had been wrong about so many things. Wrong about the weapons, business, wrong about Nari being weak, and most wrong about the value of life and friendship. A soft rumbling sound made her turn around. Elder had entered the observation deck. The massive Vorthok approached and gently touched her shoulder with its paw. It was asking how she was feeling. After all these months, Nari could understand most of what the Vorthok said without words. "I'm happy," she told Elder. "Very happy." Elder made its please sound and settled down beside her. Together they watched the humans and Vorthax playing in the jungle below. Nari had been left to die on a kill planet. Instead, she had found a family. She had built a bridge between worlds. She had proven that understanding was stronger than fear. And it all started with helping one hurt creature in the jungle. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change the galaxy.